Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, the rock star of the new American left, has presented the American people with a proposition for eliminating the man-made causes of climate change in a document that she calls the Green New Deal. Strangely, included in what is really a non-binding resolution more than anything else are calls for social justice, reparations, and equity. Not equality, but equity for what she refers to as the historically oppressed in this country. For the most part, this sounds like a great plan. Eliminate the potential for disasters of climate change, provide jobs and education for all, and ensure equitable outcomes for everyone. Today, we're going to look at her Green New Deal proposal and determine if it's even possible to accomplish or if it's all just socialist authoritarian bullshit after all.
This is not mind control. Think about it.
So unless you haven't been paying attention, you live under a rock, or have decided that the world is just too sick to pay any attention to anymore. You've probably heard about the Green New Deal from newly minted Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, in which she seeks to eliminate all of the pollution, greenhouse emissions, transform our entire society, and stop the onset of man-made climate change and global warming within the next 11 years. So I'm going to dig right into it. There's actually, I have the text of the actual bill, which is really just a non-binding resolution in Congress right now, that I will post in the description below. But at the moment, there is a frequently asked questions list that was originally posted on Ocasio-Cortez's office's website and posted by her staff. And it has been altered, and we'll get into that here as we move along. So let's just jump right into this thing. Essentially, she's talking about restoring our natural ecosystems, overhauling our entire transportation system, upgrading all of our buildings, jumpstarting U.S. clean manufacturing, transforming U.S. agriculture, which, on the surface, it all sounds, hey, okay, that's cool. But there's a couple of bits of the language that in this actually truly bother me. And there's also no prescription on how this is going to happen. She keeps referring to, World War II type mobilization, where in World War II, the entire country kind of got together and participated in the manufacturing of the different weapons and vehicles and uniforms and everything that was required to defeat the Japanese and the Germans. And I think this is what she's trying to do, is basically say everybody's going to have to be on board for this if we're going to make it happen, which also bothers me in a number of different ways, and we'll get to that. It guarantees to everyone a job with family-sustaining wages, family and medical leave, vacations and retirement security, high-quality education, including higher education and trade schools, high-quality health care, clean air and water, healthy food, safe, affordable, adequate housing, an economic environment free of monopolies, economic security to all who are unable or unwilling to work. Now, this is what got her in trouble this past week. This is the original document from her office's website. It has not been altered. It was downloaded straight from there. In fact, the Associated Press, the AP still has it on their site. So that you can download it and see. The AP and a number of other organizations have actually said that, yes, this is the original document. And now she's actually on Twitter trying to gaslight people and say that, oh, no, this has been altered by Republicans who want to make her look bad. And it's kind of scary that she can't own this, or even her office can't post look, we shouldn't have included that in there and post a retraction, but they didn't. So let's just get back to having a look at what all of this is. This is really interesting. High quality education, high quality healthcare, healthy food, safe, affordable, adequate housing. And it guarantees this to everybody. Everybody's guaranteed a place to live, food to eat, and a job, which I don't understand why these are things that we should be guaranteeing. Look, I'm all about a strong social safety net. I actually believe in it. A lot of my right-wing friends find that to be terrifying. The fact of the matter is that we need these things. We should be taking care of our own. It is the degree to which we take care of our own that I'm concerned, and especially when you use really loose language like high quality education. We have public education. There's nothing high quality about it. Healthy food. What does that mean? Safe, affordable, and adequate housing. What does that mean? These things are really not very well defined in this document. Let's move on. This calls for global, she's talking about global reductions of greenhouse gas emissions of 40 to 60% by 2030. That is 11 years from now. The U.S. contributes 20% of these global emissions. To hit these global targets, the U.S. must not only get to a greenhouse gas emissions neutral society by 2030, but it also must lead this change abroad to avert climate catastrophes. So what if, the biggest gross polluters are India and China, other than the U.S., of course. And what are we going to do? How are we going to force them to do this? She actually says that later on in the document that incentives or disincentives aren't enough for that kind of thing for innovation in the private sector. So what are we going to do, and how are we going to trust that they're doing it while we transform into, honestly, this doesn't look merely socialist. This looks like nearly communist. Let's move on. Just to be clear too here, I'm not going to debate climate change with anybody. That's not what this is about. Let's just focus on what it is that, that her office and so many people have signed off on in terms of, support for it, not only with Republicans or Democrats, but with Republicans as well. We must utilize World War II era New Deal style financing, which commits to long-term benefits instead of short-term quarterly returns. Well, whose money is going to be invested, and how are you going to collect enough to make that happen? She talks here about how the speed of investment must be swift, but companies are too slow because essentially they're in it for profit. And the government, however, has the time horizon to be able to patiently make investments in the exploration of new tech and R&D without necessarily having a commercial outcome or application in mind at the time the investment is made. Yeah, we've seen the results of this before. And she goes on to cite a couple here as if they were successful. And I actually wish that I had thought to include it. It's going to be in a different video. But I looked at the 27 different companies that the American people invested billions of dollars into during the Obama administration in green projects and solar companies and wind farms, et cetera. Every single one of them on the list has failed, has filed for bankruptcy, or simply closed its doors and gone home. So my faith in government investing in this kind of thing isn't terribly high. And of course, the one thing that people tend to mostly forget is where the money comes from. The money comes from us. So in any case, let's get back to this. So government is going to essentially have to take everybody's money and then reinvest it. But that's okay because, it's going to save the world. Retrofitting all businesses to be all buildings to be energy efficient. Does that include my building or your building, or whose building, and who's going to enforce that? And what kind of army of inspectors are we going to have? And what standards are going to have to be constantly maintained? How much is that going to cost? And whose private business and private homes is that going to affect? I think these are actually these are questions worth asking. Merely incentivizing the private sector doesn't work. The tax incentives and subsidies given to wind and solar projects have been a valuable spur to growth in the renewables industry. No, they haven't. But even with such investment promotion subsidies, the present level of such project is simply inadequate to transition to a fully greenhouse gas neutral economy as quickly as needed. I see, let's talk about just the last point real quick, and I'm going to wrap this up here as quickly as I can. But the last point that I made about, investigating people's private homes, businesses, second homes, grandma's homes, any building, public or private, but mostly private, in the country, in order to ensure that they're, falling into line and being compliant, is I see lawsuits. And they're going to start immediately. As soon as the government starts raising these taxes, as soon as the government begins its process of moving everybody over into these types of jobs because of the incredible workforce that we're going to need to make it happen, as soon as government begins to tell private industry what it is that they have to produce in order to be a part of this project, the lawsuits will begin, and those alone will be in court for 11 years. So let's move on here. Let's get down. How will you pay for it? With public money appropriated by Congress. We will finance the investments for the Green New Deal the same way we paid for the original New Deal, World War II, the bank bailouts, tax cuts for the rich, and decades of war. Decades of war alone. If we just took all of the money that was spent in Iraq and Afghanistan, again, it wouldn't pay for Medicare for all alone over 10 years. It wouldn't pay for it. So we could, the tax cuts for the rich. Tax cuts are not how we paid for anything. The New Deal in World War II is an absolute necessity. And it didn't even cost what she's talking about here. And again, if you actually go to the actual proposal, which again, I'll link below, the actual bill that's in Congress, the non-binding resolution anyway. This puts jobs and justice first. This plan will require a strong social safety net so every person in the U.S. can make this transition comfortably and nobody falls through the cracks in the process. If we want to be able to mobilize our economy fully, we can't afford to have employees stuck in their current jobs because they're afraid to lose health care, or workers unable to participate. Unable to participate in what? Because they can't afford the education and training programs. And a federal jobs guarantee ensures that no worker is left behind. We believe that economic securities and programs for justice and equity. Equity means the same outcome, not equality. She actually says equity here. Laid out in this Green New Deal resolution are a bare minimum of what we need to do to successfully execute the Green New Deal. This resolution outlines the plan to virtually eliminate greenhouse gas emissions and pollution from every sector of the economy, including emissions from cows or from air travel. So she's talking about cow farts. And my question, is, okay, so because we've been told that cow farts and what they do to the land is unsustainable, are they going to decide that we're no longer allowed to eat cheeseburgers and hamburgers anymore? Are they just going to kill off all of the livestock? Exactly how are they planning on eliminating cow farts? Air travel. Seriously, what are you going to do? How are you going to eliminate air travel? Are we going to make solar powered airplanes? I mean, these are real questions. I'm not actually, this isn't hyperbole. I'm serious. Have these things been thought through? It doesn't sound like it. Green New Deal also calls for any infrastructure measures before Congress to address climate change, and additionally call for an end of transport of pollution to overseas. The Green New Deal is a 10-year plan to reorient our entire economy to be pollution and greenhouse gas emissions free, while ensuring every person in the U.S. benefits from this enormous transformation of our society. Only banning fossil fuels, see that, won't build a new economy to replace it. The Green New Deal is a plan to build the next economy and spells out how to do it technically. No, it doesn't. There's no technical details in here or in anything else. Now I'm going to scroll back up real quick because of the jobs thing here. So she says, we don't want to have employees stuck in their new jobs because we're afraid to lose them, or workers unable to participate because they can't afford the education and training programs. What if I don't want to participate? It sounds to me like and this is, again, you can interpret this a couple of different ways. I'm interpreting it as, basically everybody needs to participate. Like I think this is why she brings up World War II, is because everybody needs to be a part of the solution. Everybody needs to be working in the industries. Everybody needs to be working in the government-provided jobs, in the government-provided homes, in the government-provided new framework of what our world is going to need to look like to solve this problem. And there is nothing in here at all that suggests that it's possible to do in 11 years, or that it's going to, or that it's actually going to have the outcome, the effect that has been predicted in a science, in an industry of people that have not been great about accurate predictions thus far. Anyway, thanks for checking in. I'm going to have more on this actually in my next video, in the 7 days of stupid that I plan on releasing here tonight or tomorrow. So please like, subscribe, and comment. Keep the conversation going here. Keep the information flowing. Please find us at the Skeptic Tank Show on Twitter, at the Skeptic Tank Show on Facebook, and let me know what it is you think, because as always, I do want to hear it. Thanks so much.
And you know it!